the other thing is that I feel like I always try to grow my skills and do something different in order to keep learning. So when I got those first lights in 1999, a lot of the other photojournalists, they were doing more basic portrait lighting, and I started to experiment and try out different things and try to learn things. And it's because I wanted to take on that technology and learn that thing. And so that then increasing or improving my lighting skills set me up for success when photojournalism and still photography started to decline, because right there around 2008 to 2012 is when a lot of the clients that I had started pulling back their spending and pulling back, or maybe even going out of business in some contexts, especially for magazines. And so I needed something else to do. But thankfully, I developed those technical skills in lighting that set me up for success as a commercial photographer. And so that then led to the next series in my life. And then time frame phase of my life career. Um, and then, of course, having those skills and continuing to grow my skills set me up to be a photography educator. So I had no idea that when I started out, you know, photographing sports events, that I would end up getting really good at lighting and then getting good at, hopefully getting good at teaching people. So it really is sort of that whole progression. Um, and then specifically, being exposed to Instagram all the time in particular, I think really has changed. It's definitely changed the way that I shoot, because I'm seeing things that I like and I'm slowly evolving my style into something new and, taking on a new thing. So, probably around 2015 to 2018, that's when I started seeing a lot of painterly looking window lit portraits with painted backgrounds, and I started, into that. And and then probably at one time there was a lot of high contrast black and white things that I was doing, so I started going down that avenue. Now recently, with the advent of LEDs and the ability to change colors and have all sorts of things going on really quickly in our shots, now there's a whole other avenue of learning. So I think over time, I've just tried to grow those relationships with people, grow my skill level, and then also, just wait and see where the universe takes me. But definitely having those two things, the relationships and growing your skills, those things will, come together in order to get you the right work at the right time. Because, you might, um, if I didn't have the ability to do those beauty shots when I met the art director for the beauty education company, then I wouldn't have went down that avenue. So it's sort of like, we have to marry the idea of growing our skills and growing our relationships in really order to move forward and be prosperous, I think, as photographers.
Now, growing your skills, to me, that's it's really at the core, for me personally, of what I do. And this is just really just for me, it's just driven by natural curiosity, I think. And it's, for me, that, Instagram had a major impact on that because you're all of a sudden you're exposed to so many different accounts and images, and and I always used to think like, wow, like how how did that person do that? That's unbelievable. And then immediately I'd be like, right, let's reverse engineer that. Like, how can you get that look? And then the next step for me has always been trial and error. I'm lucky I have a little shooting space in my house, a mini studio, which is actually exactly, what you mentioned earlier. It's a small space with white walls, and you get used to shooting in that. And of course, for me, it's probably the exact opposite to yourself. When I'm in a big studio and I don't have my little white walls next to me, I feel like, oh, things are different. I mean, by now I've gotten used to it, but in the beginning it was like, why doesn't light behave the way I'm
Yeah.
expecting it to? It's like, oh, because you get no reflections from anywhere.
Hmm.
Yeah, one of these things. That's why I like the lights, especially the white side. I just build my own. This is actually, I tell you what, it's a funny thing. So I did talk at a photography show, and I was on a live shooting stage. So it's basically where you demonstrate live shoots. And I was recreating a sort of a portrait thing that I do a lot. And in setting up the set on stage for me, I had to measure the exact difference between the backdrop and the back of the models. It was a seated pose, basically, because I needed to know exactly where where the back of the model would be in order for me to position my backlights accurately to get the same type of hotspot that I'm used to at home, given my equipment. And so to me, it was important to measure that distance accurately. And I remember I was setting up, and the person I'm setting up with, he goes like, "I can't believe you're measuring that. Why are you measuring?" I was like, because this is a different space. I need to recreate the conditions that I have at home, and having the distances accurate helps me to not fumble around, like you said earlier. But when I'm in front of the audience, I need to get the result that I'm expecting, because that's what we're here to learn, basically. Um, so to me, test shooting, as I call it, or practice shooting, is super important. I know you do that a lot. You practice a lot.
Yeah, so when I started off with lighting at first, I was photographing business people and people in the news. And this in the news, in case that sounded like in the nude. Um, and my skill level went up really quickly, and then it sort of leveled off because I wasn't practicing. And then when I got on Instagram, I ran out of content to post, and then I started having to practice again. So then I would find models on Instagram, and I would do a few shoots a month, and I would try out those new things that I was inspired by, and then that would increase my skills. And then eventually, I needed to start making content for my membership website, the Academy with John Gress, or I needed to make things for YouTube. And then I needed, to do practice shoots, sort of, but they were a little more directed in that it's like, okay, I need to make a video to show how to recreate window lighting. So that's what we're going to do today in this shoot. And maybe I would find some images that I thought were inspiring, and then I would go and I would try out those particular images. So that's actually going to be my next YouTube video in a few weeks. Which is how to recreate window lighting in 3 different scenarios. And I think in one of them, I actually talk about how I had an inspiration image from a particular photographer. They were gracious enough to share their photo with me so that I could show it on screen to sort of explain where I was coming from with the art direction and that sort of thing. Um, and then let me step back one bit, just because I think I made a veiled comment that I didn't explain very well. But yes, if the AI takes us out as photographers, I think I will use the skills that I've developed, um, particular in making videos, to make history related content on YouTube, uh, in order to, educate people about history, just because I find that to be really fascinating. And that's the thing that I watch almost every night when falling asleep. Sometimes I watch the same show 3 times. So it's and I just find it interesting because I'm just constantly learning something and learning something new. Whereas when I was younger, I was like, I don't need to know this stuff and all of these dates. But now it's really like about learning the context of everything. That's what I think is so great about history, is that um, we're learning how this social movement leads into this social movement, goes into that social movement, and how things progress. Just like in my career, going from photojournalism to commercial photography to being a photography educator, maybe that will then take me into educating people about something else. So if the AI takes us out. So that's what I guess is sort of maybe the theme, is just developing your skills over time and be open to whatever comes your way.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, then press here for the full episode in glorious Technicolor. Hey, and don't forget to subscribe.